Every serial killer counts on one thing: that the person they take will never walk away to name them. 5 times that assumption broke. This is the file on the ones who got away. The survivors who turned 26 hours of terror, a scream through a motel wall, and a barefoot run across an airfield into the evidence that caught the men who took them. 5 killers. 5 people who were never supposed to survive. We're counting them down. By the winter of 1987, Gary Heidnik had turned the basement of his house in North Philadelphia into a prison. He had abducted 6 women and held them below the floorboards, and 2 of them would not survive. But the first woman he ever took would be the reason the others walked out alive. Her name was Josefina Rivera. For 4 months, Rivera survived by doing something almost unimaginable. She stayed calm, she watched, and she slowly convinced her captor that she was on his side. It worked. Heidnik came to trust her enough to let her out of the house, certain she would always come back. One night in March, he agreed to let her visit her family and drove her to a nearby gas station to wait. Rivera didn't go to her family. She found a phone and called the police. When officers saw the raw marks the chains had left on her legs, they believed every word. They drove straight to that gas station, arrested Heidnik on the spot, and walked into the basement to free the women still trapped inside. Rivera hadn't just escaped. She had walked her captor into a trap. The sound that finally exposed Richard Cottingham came through a motel wall. For 3 years, women had been murdered across New York and New Jersey, and the cases refused to connect. The man behind them was careful, methodical, and to everyone who knew him, completely ordinary, a computer operator with a family in the suburbs. Detectives had almost nothing to go on. What stopped him wasn't a detective at all. It was a scream. On a May morning in 1980, he checked into a New Jersey motel with an 18-year-old named Leslie Ann Odell. Behind that door, he drew a knife. But this time the walls were thin, and a housekeeper working the corridor heard Odell screaming and called for help. Officers reached the room while it was still happening. They pulled the man out and arrested him where he stood. And once police had him in custody, the invisible pattern finally started to come into focus. Years of unsolved attacks and murders across 2 states tied to one man. Leslie Odell survived. And because her screams were heard in time, a killer who had hidden in plain sight for years was stopped in a single morning. Cindy Paulson reached the airfield barefoot and in handcuffs, certain that the plane in front of her would take her somewhere no one would ever find her. It was the summer of 1983, and women had been disappearing around Anchorage, Alaska, for years, with almost no one connecting the cases. What no one knew was that a respected local baker, a married businessman, was flying his victims into the Alaskan wilderness and hunting them. His name was Robert Hansen. He had handcuffed the 17-year-old, held her for hours, and driven her to that airfield to load her onto his plane. And it was there, out in the open, that she ran. Barefoot and still in cuffs, Paulson bolted across the tarmac and out onto the road, where a passing truck driver stopped and got her to the police. At first, almost no one believed her. Hansen was respectable, and friends gave him an alibi. But Paulson had memorized his face, his car, and his plane. Months later, detectives searched his home, and hidden inside his own headboard, they found a map, marked with more than 20 small crosses, the graves of the women he had hunted. Robert Hansen confessed to 17 murders. Cindy Paulson's escape had given investigators the break that ended a killing spree 12 years long. When police first saw Tracy Edwards, he was shirtless, frightened, and still wearing one of Jeffrey Dahmer's handcuffs. By the summer of 1991, Dahmer had been killing for more than a decade, and the system had failed his victims again and again, with reports ignored and warnings waved away. In the end, it took someone getting out of that apartment alive. On the night of July 22nd, Edwards had found himself handcuffed inside Dahmer's Milwaukee apartment, realizing he was not going to be allowed to leave. So he fought. He struck Dahmer hard enough to knock him down, and he ran out the door and down the street. He flagged down 2 patrol officers, and instead of simply getting himself free and disappearing, he led them back to apartment 213. What they found inside ended everything and confirmed that Dahmer had taken 17 lives. Tracy Edwards was the one who did not become the 18th. His decision to turn around and bring the police back is the reason the truth came out when it did. In the autumn of 1984, the Tampa Bay area was living in fear. A killer later tied to at least 10 murders was abducting women across the city, and police were no closer to a name. Then he took a 17-year-old named Lisa McVey off her bicycle as she rode home from work. For 26 hours, McVey was certain she was going to die. But instead of giving in to the fear, she began memorizing everything she could. Blindfolded, she tracked every turn of the car and counted the steps to his door. She memorized his voice. She deliberately touched every surface she could reach, leaving her fingerprints behind on purpose. She even talked to him, inventing a sick father who needed her, making herself a person rather than just another victim. And through a gap in the blindfold, she read a single word off the dashboard: Magnum. For reasons no one has ever fully explained, Bobby Joe Long let her go. Terrified she wouldn't be believed, Lisa McVey still walked into a police station and gave them everything: the route, the car, the word. 12 days later, police arrested him, and the Tampa killing stopped. Lisa McVey grew up to become a sheriff's deputy with the very office that helped put her kidnapper away. 5 killers, 5 people who were never supposed to walk out of a basement, a motel room, an airfield, an apartment, a car. They did, and each of them turned survival into evidence that helped stop the man who took them. We remember the ones who were lost, but this file belongs to the ones who got away. Somewhere, there is always another file and another name. The killers made the headlines. The survivors are the names worth remembering.